The last decade was huge for space exploration. We did a bunch of awesome stuff and reached a ton of major milestones. So before we hit 2020, I wanted to recap some of the wildest, most incredible achievements in space that we hit during the 2010s. Number 1, we made it to interstellar space, twice. On August 25th in 2012, Voyager 1, the space probe, flew beyond the heliopause and entered interstellar space, making it the first human-made object to explore this new territory. At the time, it was at a distance of about 122 astronomical units, or about 11 billion miles from the Sun. Then in 2018, Voyager 2 did the same thing, so now we've got 2 space probes out beyond our own solar system exploring stuff. Number 2, in addition to visiting interstellar space, we also visited a ton of our neighbors in the solar system. So in 2011, the Messenger probe was the first craft to orbit Mercury. Then in 2015, New Horizons was the first craft to explore Pluto. We actually got images of this thing, and believe it or not, there's a landmass on Pluto that looks like the shape of Pluto, the Disney character. And that's not it either. We also visited a dwarf planet called Ceres. Ceres is basically the biggest asteroid in the asteroid belt that lies between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. It's 945 kilometers wide, so it's not technically a planet, but it's massive, and we explored that as well. Then after that, we also sent the Juno spacecraft to Jupiter in 2016, an event which a really weird-ass PR agency celebrated by making the world's most ridiculous sandwich. They actually sent this to Digital Trends' office in New York, and I'm still pissed that I didn't get to take a bite of it. We also crash-landed Cassini into Saturn in 2017. So after orbiting the planet for 2 decades, we kamikazed that shit into the surface for science, and scientists are still analyzing the data that we got from that event. And last but not least, we also landed the Curiosity rover on Mars. I actually think this is a big enough thing to just be its own item on this list. So Curiosity isn't the first rover that we ever landed on Mars, but it is definitely the best one that we've ever done. Compared to earlier rovers like Pathfinder and Sojourner, Curiosity has way more advanced tech on board. Like, in addition to things like instruments that can carry out soil analysis, it's equipped with a super robust camera system, which has beamed back all kinds of awesome stuff from the Red Planet ever since it touched down in 2012. If you want to see those images, you can actually follow Curiosity on Twitter and see what it's up to. So there's a robot on Mars that you can follow on Twitter. How rad is that? Number 4, we completed the International Space Station. It's easy to take this for granted, but right now, miles above Earth, floating around us at thousands of miles per hour, is a space station. It's a f***ing station in space. It is the end result of decades of collaboration between the most technologically advanced nations on the face of the planet, and it's been continually occupied by astronauts since 1999. We started building it in the 90s, but it was officially completed in 2012, and it's been hosting astronauts and running crazy experiments ever since. Which brings me to my next point, NASA's Twin Study. This is arguably the most amazing experiment that has ever been conducted in space. So basically, what NASA did is they took 2 guys, Scott and Mark Kelly, that are not only identical twins, but also happen to be astronauts. What are the odds of that happening at all? So these guys are perfect genetic copies of each other. So what NASA did was keep one guy here on Earth as the control part of the experiment, and then sent the other guy up to the International Space Station for a year so that they could compare how living in microgravity affects the human body. The study was completed in 2016, and scientists are still analyzing the data that they gathered from the experiment. One interesting takeaway? Apparently space screws up your eyesight. When there's not gravity to pull your blood down into your legs, it puts extra pressure on your optic nerve and messes up your eyesight. Who knew? Number 6, we got reusable rockets this decade. So one of the main reasons that space exploration has been so expensive is that most rockets aren't designed to be reusable. So basically, we spend millions of dollars building them and filling them with stuff only to blast them off into space and either let them float endlessly in the void or fall back to Earth and burn up in the atmosphere. In other words, all those millions of dollars basically just go poof, and then we have to start over again for the next launch. But not anymore! Thanks to pioneering work from Elon Musk's company SpaceX, we now have rocket boosters that can be landed and reused. This drastically reduces the cost of launching stuff into space, which opens up all kinds of new possibilities for space exploration because now getting stuff into orbit isn't so expensive that only governments can make it happen. Number 7, we detected gravitational waves. Gravitational waves were first theorized back in 1905. But the thing is, nobody could really prove that they actually existed because we didn't have the necessary scientific instruments to detect them in the real world. So in the 1990s, we built this thing called the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, or LIGO for short. This thing has been collecting data ever since 2002, and for nearly a decade, it didn't actually find any concrete evidence of the existence of gravitational waves. But after getting some key upgrades in 2015, popped off. LIGO confirmed the existence of gravitational waves in 2016, and by 2018, it had detected 11 of them. Number 8, we got a picture of a black hole. So black holes, if you are not familiar, are called black holes because they are so massive that even light can't escape their gravitational pull. And since light can't escape them, they were once thought to be impossible to photograph. But in 2019, we did exactly that. How? Well, we basically had a global network of radio telescopes, collectively called the Event Horizon Telescope, examine the biggest black hole we could find from a bunch of different angles. Using this technique, astronomers were able to gather enough visual information to stitch together the first ever photo of a real black hole. Last but not least, we found a boatload of exoplanets. Exoplanets are basically planets that exist outside of our solar system, and in the 2010s we found more exoplanets than we had in all previous years combined. Prior to the year 2000, scientists had only found 29 of them. From 2000 to 2009, they found 392 more. But in the span from 2010 to 2019, we found 3,682 exoplanets, some of which are in the so-called habitable zone, where temperatures are mild enough to potentially support life. Basically, if humanity is ever going to colonize a planet in another solar system, chances are pretty good that we discovered that planet in the past decade. So there you have it. The past decade brought us stuff like reusable rockets, space stations, Mars rovers, and a broadening of our knowledge of the cosmos in ways that were once thought impossible. With that much happening in a single decade, it really makes you wonder what's coming in the next 10 years. Will we discover alien life? Will we send humans to Mars? What if we mine asteroids for precious metals? At this point, I'd say just about anything is possible, so strap in. The next decade of space exploration is going to be even crazier than the last. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked this video and found any of that stuff that I said interesting, there's a link in the description below that'll take you to an article on digital trends that has way more information on all of those points. I kind of just blasted through them, so if you want to read more, check that link out. Also, I kind of want to hear what your opinions are on the most amazing achievements in space are. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know if I missed anything in my roundup. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe.